Gentlemen, welcome to week 3 of fantasy football. I think we should all take a second. This isn't a moment of silence, but rather a step back, a deep breath of what it feels like to have football back in our lives fully. It's something that I feel we're approaching the season of taking football for granted. After you get your feet wet, and it's kind of like how I would describe you're in a new relationship and then things kind of get stale and it's no, this is like a first date over and over again, week in and week out. We love football hard, and she's here to stay, at least for the time being. And for fantasy football purposes, we've got some power rankings to get to. Now, I've got my partner here. I guess he would be on this side, actually. Michael Holmes, congratulations on your week this past week. Any recap for your team and for your matchup to come this week?
Yeah, I think we had an off week last week, but thankfully we're playing. We played a shit team, and we were still able to pull through with a dub. This week, it's there's no room for error here. We got the Dragons. It's going to be a shootout, I am afraid. And if my players do not score touchdowns, we could easily get 20 to 30 ball. So we got to be on the A game.
Yeah, and while offenses and defenses are still trying to figure themselves out, offenses were very clunky in week 1. Some offenses took a step up in week 2, and maybe we're finding out that some offenses aren't as good as we thought they were. And then one thing we haven't even mentioned is the injury bug is rampant at the moment.
Bad. It's bad.
I would like to point out that Chase Holmes has chimed in. I don't know who is a worse co-host, Mike or Rex. If you have not seen the 6-pack episode last week, I believe it was, I think that might be clear as to who may or may not be a worse guest position on a fantasy football show. Okay, so let's recap this past week before we get into the power rankings. So we've got it pulled up here. The Bond County Coonhounds fell to the St. Louis Looters, 111 to 148. The Tennessee Colonels eke out a win against the Cowley Pigs. The Beecher Creatures absolutely dominating the Clark County Coonhounds. The Dallas Dragons taking care of business against Bear Boobs. And then the Huntsville Hitmen, although played a shit team, was able to take care of the Shadow Troop by rather narrow of margins, I might add. Now, we're going to get into each of these teams, but we're going to start with number 10, and they've changed this week. Rankings have shifted quite a bit. A lot of things have gone into the ranking shifting, but it should be to no one's surprise that the Shadow Troop are number 10. Now, let us actually, I think it's a better visual if we just look at the matchup numbers this past week. Justin Herbert, 12. Alvin Kamara, it's the most useless of fantastic fantasy players on one of the shittiest team in the league. Whole lot of single-digit numbers here. And, if I didn't know that Anthony Richardson was a quarterback, I would have maybe mistaken this for like some wide receiver that nobody really knew about that got 12.7 points last week. Mike, you went up against, God damn, it gets worse as you go to the bench. Mike, you went up against this team last week. It wasn't one of your best performances, obviously. But thoughts on the Shadow Troop?
Currently in a rebuilding year. They've got a few pieces that could be good for trade bait. But other than that, I think it's scuffed, especially at the running back position. I think if you go back up, I think Madison, I think Torbeck pointed this out. He had 1 rushing yard, and thankfully that 1 rushing yard was a TD, but that's probably not going to be a solid running back too heading into the rest of the season. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase, great. That's a good trade piece. Pittman, he's okay. And then Jerry Jeudy on Cleveland. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even know Jeudy was still in the league.
Yeah, so who he has on contract, I think that's important. Everybody else you could really consider trade bait. Michael Pittman he has next year. Sam Laporta he has next year. Adonai Mitchell he has until 2026. Anthony Richardson he's got. Bo Nix he's got. Blake Corum he's got. Roma Dunze, Jordan Addison, Will Ricard, and then you've got all of his practice squad players. Still has Bazooka Joe.
That's a good luck charm.
Still has Bazooka Joe. Maybe some of the best trade bait right here. The 3rd string quarterback in New England. Definitely want to hold on to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got pieces for the future, but at some point you got to start building the roster around it.
There's a lot that he's going to lose this year. I mean, in terms of cap space that takes up next year, $323 out of your $1,300 allotment or whatever it is. So I mean that means Herbert's a free agent, but with the way that the Chargers look right now, not great. Kamara's a trade piece. Chase is a trade piece. Judy's a trade piece. Yeah, I mean that's really what he's going to have to rebuild on. Now he can franchise tag one of these guys, but will it be worth it? I'm not sure it will. So
he does have 4 first-round picks next year.
Wow.
I think is what it's either 3 or 4. But
if somebody's going to have 3 or 4 first-round picks, Parker actually is the guy to have them in his availability to scout talent. It's just his ability to manage a team once he drafts them is where it becomes an issue. It's like being able to wheel and deal at a dealership for a Corvette and then not knowing how to fucking drive the car. Is how I would sort of describe Parker Lutz's fantasy managing skills. Let's move on. We've already talked about the number 10 team too long. The Clark County Crusaders up from number 10 to number 9. I do like this team more than the Shadow Troop. Just because he has a stronger core. Brock Purdy is always going to be a threat to throw touchdown passes. Najee Harris, I think we will see more from in the future. Jerome Ford is not bad. Devonta Smith, solid. Ayuk, we have not seen a lot from, but I would expect a larger amount of volume coming his way. George Kittle, I'm not huge on George Kittle as a fantasy tight end, but he's fun. Tyler Lockett, not crazy. Ezekiel Elliott is old. Kirk Cousins, we'll see if that continues. But really not a whole lot happening on his bench. Does have a very good. I really like Dontavian Wicks, the rookie in Green Bay. And he's got Charbonnet while Walker is out. So that is also solid. Team's not great, but it's not deep for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where you could say he's also very much in a rebuilding year. So we can kind of chalk that up to that. If you've got 2 banners, can you really complain about, having an off year?
Absolutely not.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to number 8. Now, this might I don't know if it'll really ruffle that many feathers, but we've got Bear Boobs at 8. Okay. He scored 96.9 points last week. Dak Prescott, not terrible, not incredible. Derrick Henry, solid outing. David Montgomery, solid outing. After that, it's where it gets not so great for this team.
Yeah, and granted, Sam, I guess, looked at his phone after the noon games had started and figured out that Evan Ingram was out. And then I can't think of it. AJ Brown also missed, and that's why he had to throw in Jahan Dotson for the Monday night game. So I give him a little bit of grace there as to why the score was so low. But I think 8 is an appropriate ranking for the Boobs at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to a depth situation here. So, I mean, even let's say he does throw a capable tight end who's going to play in, and he gets 8 or 9 points. I think that's like you're happy if you walk away and your tight end scores 8 to 9 points.
Yeah.
I mean, that still obviously doesn't change the outcome of this. It also doesn't put you in that scoring category of being able to expect to win if you're scoring like under 110. Jahan Dotson, not a great replacement. Yeah, we'll see. I think that this team could be a little bit better. I think that this is a salty team that's going to try and, fight for one of those last few playoff spots because I believe they are better than bottom of the barrel, but I don't know how much better than bottom of the barrel they are, just in terms of depth. So that's sort of where I land on Sam here. Speaking of a team that dropped in the rankings, the Bond County Coonhounds. Okay, let's talk about it. Mike, actually, I'll let you lead the Bond County Coonhounds, and then from a manager's perspective, I'll try and provide some insight.
Okay. Yeah, so Murph is coming off 2 losses in which he played 2 teams that dropped, I believe, 145 plus. I think Chase scored around that much week 1, Looters week 2. So 0-2, not really entirely reflective of the caliber of this team. Yeah, most points against there sitting at 292 that's not a fun look. As far as the team goes, he's got pieces, but the injury bug has hit him hard early on. Stop glazing the Coonhounds team's ass. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Pacheco is hurt. He's going to miss extended amount of time. Who else you got down there? Ken Walker. I don't know how long he's out, but I think it's at least a few weeks.
He is now questionable. He's still dealing with an oblique, and I wouldn't count him in for this week either against Miami.
Okay, and you also lost Jordan Love week 1. So, yeah. I mean, that's 3 starters down off rip, which is not a good spot to be in. So I think this team definitely improves. The scoring will get kicked back up. The area of issues I see are the aging tight ends that have yet to get it going. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're going to continue the tight end attack method with the 2 tight ends. Looks like you've already subbed one out, but it's not a good sign when Kelsey has put up like 2 points and 1 point, and Mark Andrews has also put up less than like 5, I think, both weeks.
Yeah, he had a little bit better. Oh, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, it looks like your camera turned off.
Oh, am I back?
I mean, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, interesting. I'm not quite sure what happened. Start. There we go.
Oh, there we go. You were good.
There we go.
Okay.
Mark Andrews had a little bit better week last week. If it will allow me to click, I'm not sure it will. Let me try this. Okay, here we go. Share screen. Okay.
Are we still frozen?
We
you can
scroll, but it's not allowing us to click. So we'll figure it out. But anyways, Mark Andrews is he scored I think 8 points last week, so a little bit better. I think one of the bigger concerns for me right now, and I would describe the Coonhounds in a situation where at the beginning of the season, the panic button was outside, buried in the yard. And after the second week of just having our opponents, have tremendous weeks against us, and having the second highest points against, it really brought the spirits down surrounding the team. And I'll tell you, the most concerning thing for me going forward, while Pacheco being hurt is bad, and losing 3 starters not great. Mark Andrews did score 7.9. Travis Kelce having 1.3, not great. But I'm also concerned about the Miami situation with Tua, because this brings the value down of Jalen Waddle considerably, and I'm not sure how much production I will receive from him either. I'm declaring week 3 almost a must-win for the Bond County Coonhounds, because being 0-3 is not going to be an easy hole to dig your way out of. And the Coonhounds,
yeah, who get on the schedule?
They get a little bit lighter schedule. We do play the Cali Pigs, although a very salty team, and we'll talk about them. Then we play the Crusaders, and then we play Bear Boobs, who he's going to be dealing with some buys in week 5. We could walk away after week 5, 3-2.
That's best case Ontario.
Best case, if we drop one of those games and the teams that I would need to lose continue to win, there's trouble in paradise. So that's why we have the Bond County Coonhounds at 7.
I think if you could get that screen to unfreeze, if you click the drop button right above Mark Andrews' name.
Yeah?
Yeah, that fixes City instantly.
Right. Alt F4?
Yeah, that also works, yeah.
Okay, number 7, we've got the Cali Pigs. Cali Pigs, in week 2, they came up just a little bit short of the Tennessee Colonels. The Rams are not, they're hurt.
Both wide receivers.
In more ways than one. Their offensive line is in shambles. Matt Stafford has no time in order to throw the ball. Zamir White has not produced yet. James Conner continues to be very good for a Arizona team that is also good. Kyle Pitts down week. Calvin Ridley, incredible week, but I think this is probably his ceiling. Rashid Shaheed continues to be awesome, as so do the Saints. Derek Carr, also incredible, and what a stack. I mean, but you go to his bench.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there. So, as it sits, he's fine, and I think a potential playoff team. However, thankfully, my team was built in such a way that we were able to still be able to deal with this onslaught of injuries. Had that happened to like 3 or 4 other teams in this league, absolutely crippled. Ryan is one of those teams, and I am concerned for that matter. However, Ryan has done this year in and year out and still made the playoffs, so I will continue to bet on Ryan until I'm proven otherwise.
Nobody does more with less than Ryan Taylor. I have seen it year in and year out with fantasy teams. And he's probably going to say that I'm glazing him for saying this, But yeah, I don't. Every year you look at Ryan's team and you're like, this is dog shit. What was he thinking? And then come playoff time, there
and
he
make the
is.
playoffs.
Yep.
It happens too often for me to continue to poke holes in his team, because ultimately he'll find a way to weasel into the playoffs. And I think he is sweating less about being 0-2 in the state that his team is in compared to me, where the panic button has been dug up, brought inside, and the glass has been shattered. I just haven't pressed the button yet, is where I'm at. Okay, let's move on to number 5. Moving up from number 8, the Beecher Creatures. Now let me talk. I think this was the ceiling. If it's not the ceiling, holy cow. This team will reach a homeostasis. Logan, what do you mean?
Yeah, break that down.
I said last week, and you guys can go back and quote me, he's going to absolutely need Jalen Hurts to perform at or above expectations. This is why. Drake London is not, and you can quote me on this, is not a 14-point a week type of guy. Next week, he is projected 10.5 points. He will be in single digits next week. I am not a Drake London guy. Trey McBride, while you cannot expect double-digit points out of the tight end slot week in and week out, we just know this is fact. James Cook had an incredible week. Does this become the norm? I also think not. Zay Flowers is good.
Yeah.
Jared Goff, down week. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Chase, I knew Rex's team would reach a homeostasis.
I'm not sure that's spelled correctly.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to follow that up with. And we have not seen what his homeostasis looks like. Dylan Murphy has also chimed in. The Crusaders are thankful for 9. Shadow Troop are worse than dog shit. Looters are frauds. We will expose this week.
I hope you do, Dylan. We all hope you do.
I think that this team is capable of a 170. I don't think that this team is this is not an unrealistic number. This is not a flash in the pan number. I just don't think that, I mean, obviously this is not an average. I think that this will be about a 120 type of team. And I'm just not 100%, especially when you begin to look at his bench. Christian Kirk, not great. Rico Dowdle could have an uprising. Jaylen Warren is not seeing the volume that we thought he would. Gesicki, solid option, but he's not going to play him over McBride.
Well, and Gesicki's only doing that with Skylar Thompson in.
Right. And he does have JSN as well.
Yeah. But Xavier Worthy's a bust. Troy Franklin's a bust. This man I don't think he did anything worthwhile in the draft. And every player on his team this week had double-digit points. Nobody busted. And typically, week in and week out, at least 2 of your players are going to bust.
Absolutely.
So this is the cap. This is the ceiling.
I agree. I think this is the ceiling. I think this week won't tell us a whole lot because I believe he plays the Shadow Troop. So Creatures most likely going to beat the Shadow Troop. Oh, we have breaking news. The Creatures have announced after hearing this ranking, they have extended to a 10-year plan.
He's going to need it. I mean, it was so stupid of Rex to waste his 170 week on Dylan. There was no need for that. But he wanted to show power after losing week 1, getting upset by Torbeck. And he did. Congrats, Rex, but you burned it on the wrong opponent.
Wasted it on a statement.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come back to this week and thinking of that.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Number 4, the Tennessee Colonels.
Oh, I can hear it now. But we won, Murph. We won.
I can hear the keys fucking clicking. They're clicking. No fucking way, Murph. Fire this fucking commissioner. This is dog shit. No.
Oh yeah.
All right. So week 1, 144. I think we might have already seen this team's cap. Week 2, 125.6. You know what this reminds me of? Mike, are you big into stocks?
Oh, I'm huge into stocks.
Okay, so you might recall August 5th, the panic sell that happened with a couple of hedge funds, and then just the stock market absolutely fucking plummeted. I don't know if we're actively watching the decline of the Tennessee Colonels.
This team is definitely like the NASDAQ once Kamala gets into office. This team may be in for a rough ride.
So he rode the back of Tyreek Hill in week 1.
Tyreek and Tua, yeah.
And Tua. Tyreek Hill, 5.1 points. Granted, Buffalo fucking locked them up this past week. Tua Tagovailoa.
His head's in a blender.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
We don't root for injuries. That I hate that for him. And it's even worse for the Tennessee Colonels. He actively chose to start Chiggy Okonkwo.
He has no tight end.
What?
He has no tight ends.
I'm aware. Thankfully, Rashee Rice continues to just be like the target in Kansas City at the moment. If that changes, we got some issues.
Yeah, he does have Maserati Marv that he did not play, and he's adamant about Marv going forward as being the best
replacement for
Tyreek. He is debating that. I mean, that's something to watch out for. He may bench Tyreek for Marv.
I wouldn't hate that move, honestly. Yeah, the Tennessee Colonels, the inconsistency with this team going forward bothers me, and that's why they're not higher at the moment. Chase Holmes says this dude knows ball. I don't know if that was in.
No, he knows no ball.
Oh, this dude knows no. Oh, so he's talking about me.
He's the dude with the worst record all time in the GFA is saying that we don't know ball.
He said, "Yeah, don't look
at my bench depth."
Okay, let's look at your bench depth. Is he speaking about his tight end bench depth? Because Christian Watson ain't in it.
Robinson's the only one that's projected over 10 points, and everybody else is borderline replaceable. If he dropped everybody right now on his bench, I don't know if anybody would pick any of those guys up.
Yeah, I mean, Keon Coleman is here. I don't mind that.
Brian Thomas Jr., same thing.
But the inconsistency in Jacksonville is also a thing. I mean, Christian Kirk had less than 5 points this week. Yeah, I mean,
4's fair. He needs to be satisfied.
I think 4 is more than fair. Andrew Torbeck checking in. Speaking of Andrew Torbeck, the Looters are number 3 this week.
That's a shame.
I understand that the league is not high on the Looters.
No. And can I tell you why, Murph? This team is like a North Korean grocery store. All the products up front and for show, But when you dig into it, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's no substance. There's no meat and potatoes. It's all show. Oh, hey, look, Americans, look at our fully stocked grocery stores. And it's all plastic. It's fake. This man is the equivalent of a Brazilian butt lift.
Yeah. I will say this. Okay. So I watched a lot of football over the weekend. And I go back and I rewatch games that I want to see a little bit closer. I understand that some people just watch Red Zone and they consume football that way, and that's totally okay. Here's what I saw from a couple of players in particular about this team. And this is going to be me trying to pick the looters apart in why, A, they're number 3, but also why they show promise. Davante Adams, 21.5 points this week. Okay. He received 12 targets and he caught 9 of them. I think it was just before half. I don't think he had half of these points. I mean, it was just like an absolute onslaught that came on, and it was only Davante Adams that was open. I don't know that I guess in my dumb football brain, because the workload was not coming in like a consistent, like it wasn't being fed consistently throughout the game, and it was only in this one part of the game. It was just they were exposing that team right at that moment with Davante Adams. I'm not huge on Davante Adams for the looters. I think that's where I agree with you in terms of looks good on a shelf, but there's bigger problems here in terms of what the production will be overall.
And this team is propped up on fake stats long term. Jordan Mason is absolutely worthless once CMC comes back. Cooper Kupp is going to have his 20 targets reduced to 10 when Puka comes back. It's a lot of players like that. Everybody else is old on his team as well. Naylor's playing because Jordan Addison is hurt. All his 18 Rams offensive players, they only have points because their top 2 wide receivers are hurt. It's all this stuff where you look and he's like, oh, so-and-so got me 20. Okay, Torbeck, come playoff time, that person's going to be on the waiver wire because he's worthless. And he does not fundamentally understand that.
I will play devil's advocate here, and this is also why he's at number 3, is because I think a lot of what my rankings come out initially and how I place guys is because of the situation that their players are in. Currently, the looters have the best player to good situation ratio out of any team.
Yeah.
Currently, as you said, Ramondre Stevenson continues to just get absolutely fed in New England. Patrick Mahomes,
he's mid. He's
what's
mid.
that?
He's mid. It's okay to admit it.
As a
fantasy quarterback, he is average.
Yes, I agree.
But he paid him like he was the top 3 dude in fantasy. Oh, it's Hurts, Josh Allen, and Mahomes. No, it's not, brother. At this point, I'd rather take Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew over Patrick freaking Mahomes in fantasy football.
Yeah, my biggest question, I think, well, I guess he might answer this question. So we've got Davante Adams, DK Metcalf, Mason, and Brock Bowers playing this week. So he's going double tight end. I was wondering how he would end up replacing.
Don't look at Terry McLaurin's contract. Whatever you do, don't see how much money he's paying that man. He's so bad. He is so bad. That's $115 for this man to rot on his bench and who has done nothing the past 3 years. He's good for one game of like 30 points, and then he's back down to 8 every week.
Yeah, but I feel the same way about the looters in terms of like the way that I do about the pigs. I think a lot of people hate on the pigs, but he continues to perform.
Yeah.
As many people want to hate on the roster that Torbeck has assembled, he's had more success in this league than you look at now, this might not be a fair comparison, but if you want to compare managers in terms of like the Colonels and the Looters, who's had more capital and usefulness to be able to use and who's made more of it? It's got to be the Looters. And so I think as a quality fantasy manager, I'm going to bet on Torbeck, which is why he's going to be number 3 in my book.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, I would project him. His ceiling is 3rd place in the playoffs again, so that makes sense. I think that's a fine rating for right now. He's at his ceiling, and he's probably loving it. So I guarantee a podium. I guarantee a podium. That's like entering the Olympics every year, bragging about your bronze medals. Like, hey, dipshit, does anybody remember 3rd place ever in life? No.
Oh, all right. Let's move on to number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2, Mike, it's you, the Huntsville Hitmen. Now, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I like your team on paper more than Dragons, but
I do too.
I imagine so when I think about Dragon as a fantasy manager and like just a football guy in general.
It's consistency.
But the image that pops up into my head is that he is this Dragon knows ball.
He knows he does.
He is in his basement with a white lab coat, just fucking mixing random colored liquids, and it looks like shit, but tastes so good. And that's how I would describe. Now, his team doesn't look like shit. He's got a ton of depth and he continues to score points, but just on paper, it doesn't pop at you the way that your team does.
He is what Torbeck wants to be.
Ooh. I would argue that he is what Rex wants to be.
Yeah, that too.
But because Torbeck thrives on his team not looking good and just outperforming people, Rex wants the notoriety of just like, man, what a fucking unit you've put together.
Yeah, and Rex loves to play the, oh, I scouted this guy, picked him up for $1, and now he's the running back 3 this year. I'm so smart. I'm a genius. Everybody look at this. When really it's like, Rex, you haven't hit on anything. The only one that you can possibly claim is Puka, and he self-admitted that he drafted Puka because of his name. It had nothing to do with the scouting report or that he saw something there. Right. So,
Mike, the way I would describe your team, I mean,
dogs.
It's a hot blonde with good tits and ass that just, I mean, it just looks good on the outside and it's continued to perform. It's got depth. It's got substance. I don't want to sit here and just glaze the shit out of the roster, but you have put together I don't want to say impenetrable because I don't want to put that injury juju on you.
It's all right. It's already happened. I've lost both my 49ers players.
But CMC will come back. I mean, but the fact is that your team is still good without Christian McCaffrey.
And Debo.
And it looks very, very good on paper. But I had to do some soul searching. I think that I was genuinely right last week putting Dragon at number 1.
That's fair. It's completely fair.
I almost second-guessed myself and switched it around last second. But as Torbeck noted, I know ball. And the Dallas Dragons, end up scoring 131 points. Kyler Murray is until double XP weekend happens.
October 5th.
Saquon Barkley continuing to perform. Jahmyr Gibbs, absolutely stunning. Justin Jefferson did have a 97-yard touchdown that won't happen every week. So if you take that away, he only has 3 receptions for like 40 yards. So put a little asterisk next to this one. I don't know what to think about the Jets and their offensive production. I thought I did. I don't. Travis Etienne is just like a solid floor guy that I think Jacksonville has to rely on.
Yeah.
Tank Dell down week, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in Houston. And I feel like, we saw Diggs had an incredible week last week. Nico Collins had a big week this week. That might have been flipped. And Tank Dell hasn't had his big week yet. Jaden Daniels, although he only scored 13.4, he'll only continue to improve as the year goes on.
Yeah, I think the Commanders were in the red zone like every other possession, and they just never could punch it in.
Yeah.
But it's gonna happen. And
the touchdown opportunity was there. He just didn't cash in.
It's Jaden Daniels is legit, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at week 3. Let's try and make some predictions, and then we'll get on our way. Bond County Coonhounds going up against the Cali Pigs. Mike, I'll let you predict this one.
I think the Coonhounds claim their first victory here. But Ryan is always a tough out. So as Chase almost found out last week, if 1 or 2 players bust, boom, there's Ryan ready to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat.
He is a vulture when players start to bust. Yes. And that is what I am afraid of. St. Louis Looters, Clark County Crusaders. Dylan has claimed that there's going to be an upset here.
Dylan also claimed that last week versus Rex, and then he got 100 balled. Yeah,
I think Dylan will play spoiler because his team has the ability to spoil weeks.
Yeah.
If he catches the Looters on an off week, he absolutely can. But I'm gonna ride with the Looters this week.
I'm riding Crusaders. I think Torbeck's luck runs out week 3. I don't think he can three-peat. He is not LeBron. Or he is like LeBron.
The Tennessee Colonels and Bear Boobs. What do we think?
I think this matchup will be very close. And it's really going to depend on if Chase pulls the right strings in his lineup with what he does with Marvin, Tyreek. Because it's going to, whatever he does, if he benches Tyreek will pop off. If he benches Marv will have another game. Either way, we're going to tell Chase that he was an idiot for not starting one of those 2 guys.
I don't know how high of a ceiling that Tyreek actually has this week.
I saw a Twitter feed, and it's like in 3 games with Skylar Thompson as quarterback, Tyreek has not had more than 60 yards and has 0 touchdowns. So, and his fantasy points were like 7, 9, and 5. So, I mean, the facts tell you from last year, you don't play Tyreek if you've got a better option. But if Tyreek goes off for 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, it's like, well, duh. I mean, it's Tyreek Hill. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
It's a difficult spot.
I'll ride with the Colonels, mainly because I think for my team's sake, I need the Colonels to win. So I'm going to continue to ride the Colonels here, although it would not shock me if Sam could spoil this one either. Beat Your Creatures. This is a prove it wasn't a fluke game. I don't think he'll score 170 points again, but like I said, I think this is about a 120, 125 type of team. Should take care of business against the Shadow Troop, but as I said in week 1, these are the games that you have to win because you have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat.
Yeah.
Especially whenever it comes down to like the last few playoff spots, got to win this game here. And then we got the matchup of the week, the big hitters, the Huntsville Hitmen and the Dallas Dragons.
It's going to be a shootout.
It's going to be a shootout. I'm going to take the Huntsville Hitmen in this one because I like the team more on paper. But as we've said before, Dragon is a mad scientist when it comes to football, and more specifically fantasy football. But I like the Hitmen in this one. And that's what we've got for you so far. Mike, anything you got before we go?
Yeah, Malik Neighbors getting the start this week. Welcome to the neighborhood, baby. He had 18 targets last week. Daniel Jones has got to feed the beast. I think that's my X factor this week. If he does good again, I've got a really good shot going into Monday night to win it. If not, I think I may be cooked. But I'm looking forward to it. I think we got some really good matchups this week overall. And I'm sure that Ryan and Torbeck will be bitching all week long, as always, in the chat.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you joining for this week's Power Rankings. Boys, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope if you are upset, you can suck my fucking dick. Have a great week, and I will see you all next week.
Smell you later, turds.